On January 15, 1919, in the far north of Boston, in Massachusetts in the United States, where a large tank of molasses exploded and large quantities of molasses rushed into the streets of Boston at an estimated speed of 35 kilometers, killing 21 people and wounding more than 150.
Did you know that the holder of the book is more dangerous than the holder of the arms?
The source of the so-called Great Molasses Flood disaster was a 50-foot steel tank on Boston's North End Commercial Street. The tank was owned by the United States Industrial Alcohol Company, which received regular shipments of molasses from the Caribbean and used it to produce alcohol and to make liquor. The company established the reservoir in 1915, when the demand for industrial alcohol increased after the First World War. But the construction process was speeded up and the construction took place very randomly. After a while, the tank began to erode almost, and honey or molasses began to seep into the street. An employee warned the company that the tank was structurally unsound. However, the company did not take any action. By 1919, Italian and Irish immigrant families on the commercial street were accustomed to hearing the roar and squeak of metal coming from the tank. On the afternoon of January 15, 1919, temperatures were unusually mild in the Boston winter. At about 12:40 p.m., the calm of the afternoon was broken by the sound of a metallic roar. And before the residents had time to record what was happening, the recently refilled molasses tank was wide open and unleashed 2.3 million gallons of honey. A 15-foot wall of liquor began flowing down Commercial Street at a rate of 35 miles per hour, wiping out people, buildings, horses, and electric poles in its path. Then the children immediately swallowed and choked on molasses. After a while, the wave of molasses receded, and the ruined buildings and the devastation that had befallen the place appeared. Within minutes, police and firefighters arrived at the scene of the disaster and U.S. Navy ships arrived. People struggled to get through the winter-hardened molasses and began picking up survivors in the wreckage. During the few days after the disaster, rescue workers continued to examine the ruins, and the number of dead reached about 21 dead and 150 wounded. In the aftermath of the disaster, the victims filed a lawsuit against the company, but the company offered a different explanation for what happened to the tank and that the flooding occurred as a result of sabotage by Italian anarchist groups. The company claimed that an unknown man called the company and said that he would blow up the tank with dynamite. She claimed that the tank was intentionally blown up. The lawsuit lasted for about 5 years, until 1925, when the state auditor, Hugh W. Ogden, decided that molasses was the cause of the disaster, and concluded that the company's planning was weak, neglected, and lack of supervision of the building structure. The company paid the victims an amount of $628,000 in compensation, which is equivalent to $8 million today. By the time the settlement was done, the area recovered and businessmen volunteered to remove the wreckage, but the smell of molasses remained in the area for several weeks and the waters of Boston Harbor were brown in color until summer. Enough so, do not forget to subscribe to the channel, and give us admiration. See you soon.